My name is Delanier Shook, and I am the information collector. Today I'm coming to you from the Black Mountain, North Carolina Railroad Depot. And I'm here for a reason. Because 1 year ago, this weekend, I started this broadcast. And I'd like to pause for a moment of silent thanksgiving for that year. Now, last year I was on the other end of the depot, which is a beautiful place to shoot. But I specifically chose this end because it's not the same broadcast. Now, it was a good broadcast, had a good format, and I even predicted that China would push up to India's border, which they did within that week. I didn't predict it per se, but I did say China was the nation to watch, mainly because they were having a pretty bad year. We all were, but China was having a bad year. And that was the basis for my prediction. And it came true. And thank God nothing happened out of that conflict. Now we're looking forward to another year. And by the grace of God, it'll be a better year. This week I have a few items to bring you. And I want to encourage you, follow the broadcast. And follow it not just because I'd really like you to and appreciate it, but also within this next year, I intend to have some goodies for those who follow the broadcast. And without further ado, here's the 1 year anniversary broadcast of the Information Collectors Intelligence Briefing. I'm very grateful to the community of Black Mountain for being the place where I started my broadcast career. The money this town has invested in being the rocking chair of Western North Carolina is impressive. It's not just the depot, sidewalks, the street. It's an amazing place to visit. And also, I have a lot of great friends in Black Mountain. Some of the best people I know are in Black Mountain. So, as a thanks to the community, I wanted to show a new venture, Sassafras on Sutton. They have bookshop. It's a bookshop. They have toys. They have gifts, and they just started serving coffee. I stopped in there before my broadcast and wanted to pick up a cup of coffee, and they said the coffee bar is not quite ready yet. So, everybody watching needs to come down to Sassafras on Sutton. Remember, air travel is getting back to normal. Come down to Sassafras on Sutton. It's on the corner of Sutton Avenue and Cherry Street. Cherry Street's right over there. I'd show y'all, but everybody's all busy up there. But I just want to thank Black Mountain. This is Sassafras on Sutton. They're Tuesday through Saturday. Saturday they're open 10 to 6. Monday they're open 12 to 5. Awesome place, wonderful. They had me use hand sanitizer when I came inside. Visit these folks. And I plan to come back for a cup of coffee. So we're coming out of a global pandemic, and 1 year ago we were pretty much in the beginning of a global pandemic. It would get worse, but we had started. And everything we're doing right now, everything is reflected in those two facts. And nothing more so In air travel, last Friday, the U.S. Department of Transportation released airline numbers for March of this year. And not surprisingly, they were more normal than at any time in a year. They said there were 467,000 scheduled flights. And that compares to 701,000 scheduled flights in March of last year. Now, 467,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but in March 2020, we went from 701,000 to April numbers of 194,000 airline flights. Now, this year, in March, 6,000 of the flights were canceled. In the prior month of February, there were 350,000 scheduled flights and 20,000 were canceled. In March of 2020, of 701,000 scheduled flights, 118,000 were canceled, which gave the 583,000 number I referred to earlier. So that is perhaps one of the best metrics, if not the best metric, for where we are and where we've come from. A couple other real quick facts from the report. Delta had the highest on-time arrival with 93%, and Spirit had the lowest arrival numbers with 85%. And they gave 3 airlines and said these were the top 3, and then they gave 3 and said they were the lowest 3. So Delta was on the number 1 of the one group of 3, and Spirit was on the number 3 of the other group of 3. I'm sure somebody had worse on-time arrivals. This year there were 3.58 mishandled bags per 1,000, and 1 year ago in March of 2020 there were 4.41 mishandled bags per 1,000. Hey, we're getting back to normal. It'll be a while, but don't worry, your bag will be mishandled. There were 49 disability-related complaints this March, as compared to 34 of last March. So we are getting there, thank God. Last Friday, the American Chemistry Council announced that U.S. specialty chemical markets volume had increased by 0.8% in April. Now, this is a group of 28 specialty chemicals that they monitor, and 14 of these expanded in April, which is down. 22 expanded in March, but in February, of the 28 specialty chemicals they monitor in this group, only 3 expanded, and this is up 13.3% over last year. From the prior month of March of this year, the groups that were down were adhesives and sealants, flame retardants, foundry chemicals, and printing ink. Plastic compounding specialty chemicals were up from April to March. Now, let's look at last year. As of last year, compared to April, all of the chemicals, specialty chemicals in this sector were up. All 28 except oil field chemicals, which is reflective of the new administration's energy policy. Rubber processing is up 159%. These are chemicals associated with processing rubber, and they said this had to do with tire manufacturing in the report. Textile specialties are up 41.9% over a year, Antioxidants are up 43.5% over a year. And those may be for industrial antioxidants, not just like vitamins. Paint additives are up 17.8%. Catalysts are up 45%. Printing ink is up 28%. Pigments are up 20%. And lubricant additives are up 51.9%. So thank God we're getting back to normal. Praise the Lord. Last Friday, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards announced a $30 million voluntary residential buyout of Lake Charles's Greenwich Terrace neighborhood, which has flooded 3 times in the past 4 years. This is part of Louisiana's Watershed Initiative, which is tapping into $1.2 billion from a federal mitigation grant the Trump administration opened to the state of Louisiana last September. Now, I opened with talking about air travel in that report, but air travel is perhaps, while it is perhaps the most stark reminder of how the pandemic affected everyone, it's not the only one, and it's not the most drastic one. I think for most of us, food service was the most drastic personal effect of the pandemic. Restaurants have felt the pandemic perhaps harder than anyone else. And in Black Mountain, and right now there's a new batch of restaurants that just opened right down the street. And, restaurants got hit hard. And Kitchen 17 was founded in Chicago 8 years ago by Jenny Plaster. She built it up over 8 years. It became famous and award-winning for its food. It was listed as one of the, quote, 10 best vegan pizza spots across America. Well, and that's not the only thing they serve. They also had house-made cheeses, meats, desserts. It was Chicago. Great restaurant, great food. Well, the pandemic came along and she had a problem. She didn't have any business. Or not as much. So she, after much soul searching, started basically a food company producing food to serve not just in her restaurant. And so last Friday, Kitchen 17 announced it was relocating its headquarters and production plant, plus its marketing offices, from Illinois to Indiana. Now, it will still have 20 employees in Chicago because she's going to keep her restaurant open in Chicago, but 64 employees will be in the town of Huntington, Indiana, where she and her sister Lori grew up. Jenny and Lori started Smiley Face Media, which works with her sister's restaurant. They grew up in Huntington, and they're coming back to their hometown. They invested $1 million in Huntington's historic Herald Press building, and part of this was a Indiana Economic Development Corporation grant of $565,000. They're going to have all sorts of great stuff there. They're going to have an urban rooftop garden. They'll also have their photo and production space for their media company. But, I mean, think about it. This is how lives have been transformed. And I'm not saying a year ago, they liked what they had. But they took the crisis and they used it. Now they're back in their hometown. I mean, they probably drove by this building every week. They knew about it. And now they just bought it. So, I'm sorry for the changes that came to their life. They weren't fun. But just like this broadcast, the pandemic changed all of us. And we all have to make the best of that change, and that's not a happy thing to say, but this is a story of two Indiana natives who used the pandemic to redirect their lives.